It was a Friday night, just like any other. I sat at my desk, sifting through resumes for a new job opening. I'm the regional director of a company that makes eco-friendly products for farms, helping farmers keep their crops healthy and their water clean. Honestly, it's pretty rewarding work. We had a bit of turnover coming up. Two of my best team members were about to move on, so we needed to find replacements fast. Our sales team covers a large area in the Midwest, and this year, they've been absolutely crushing it. We're talking record-breaking sales, which is something to be proud of in an industry like ours. My assistant, Sarah, popped her head in. "Hey, boss. All 8 candidates confirmed their interviews for Monday. I'll leave everything ready for you, and I'm heading out for the night," she said, giving a quick wave before disappearing. It was a relief to have a solid team around me. The work kept me busy. Every Thursday, I'm on the road visiting our sales crew in different states. It's a lot of driving, but honestly, I don't mind. The road gives me a chance to clear my head, go over plans, or think about the future. And it works out nicely for my family, too. My wife, Emily, usually takes the kids out for some quality time on those nights. It's something we all look forward to. That Friday, as I was just wrapping up some paperwork, my phone buzzed with a call from my dad, John. He sounded serious, not his usual self. "We need to talk, son," he said, his tone leaving no room for small talk. So after I finished up, I drove over to his place. When I arrived, my parents, John and Mary, were already waiting for me in the living room. They looked troubled. There was no warm greeting, no usual lighthearted banter. My dad went straight to the point, which isn't like him. He started talking about a DNA test we'd recently done as part of a family genealogy project, something we'd all thought was just a fun way to trace our roots. But apparently, it had brought back a pretty shocking result. Turns out, our youngest daughter, Lily, has a half-sister, a fact none of us had any idea about. But the real bombshell? Lily's biological father wasn't me. Her father was a man named David, someone I actually knew. In fact, David was Emily's boss, a well-known lawyer in the area. My mind reeled as I tried to process what I was hearing. David? Emily's boss? How could this be real? The DNA results didn't lie, though, and the weight of it all hit me like a brick. My heart was pounding. Could it be true that Emily had been keeping this from me all along? Still in shock, I decided to reach out to David's mom, Sylvia, hoping to get more clarity. She was an older woman I'd met a few times at company events, always reserved but polite. When I explained why I was calling, she didn't hesitate. She confirmed everything. Sylvia admitted that she had given David up for adoption when she was young, and she'd kept it a secret all these years. Now, facing her own mortality, she wanted to make amends and hoped to meet Lily before she passed away. Hearing it directly from Sylvia made it all the more real. There was no denying it now. My mind was racing with questions. How could Emily have hidden this? Had she known about David being Lily's father all this time? Or was she just as blindsided as I was? I couldn't shake the feeling that my whole life had just been turned upside down, and I needed answers. I sat in my car outside my parents' house for a long time afterward, trying to calm down, to gather my thoughts. The trust Emily and I had built over the years felt fragile now, as if one wrong move might shatter it completely. What was I supposed to say to her? To our kids? And what would this mean for our family moving forward? The reality of this revelation was too big to ignore. I knew I couldn't sit on this forever. It was time to confront Emily and find out the truth. I knew I had to dig deeper into what was happening. Since learning the truth, every little detail started creeping into my mind. Emily's recent late-night outings, her sudden interest in more expensive clothes, and the closeness she had developed with David. All these little things that once seemed harmless suddenly took on a different meaning. The pieces were falling into place, but I needed real answers. I reached out to my friends, Chris and Sarah. They were loyal and willing to help, and we decided on a plan to follow Emily on one of her Thursday nights out. It felt strange, like something out of a spy movie, but I couldn't just stand by without knowing the truth. I needed to see it for myself. That Thursday evening, I kept a safe distance, tracking her as she left the house, saying she'd be meeting up with some friends. I watched as she drove downtown, eventually pulling up to an upscale restaurant. A few minutes later, David showed up. They greeted each other with smiles that seemed far too familiar. My stomach twisted. I sat in my car, watching as they went inside and took a table by the window. Through the glass, I could see them talking, laughing, leaning in close. They stayed at the restaurant for over an hour, looking like more than just colleagues. When they left, I followed them again. This time, they didn't part ways. Instead, they drove together to David's place. I parked nearby, a sick feeling in my chest as I watched them walk inside together. It was one thing to suspect, but seeing it made the betrayal so much more real. I sat in my car, struggling with what to do next. I felt a wave of disbelief, hurt, and anger all at once. The next day, I decided it was time to confront Emily. I gathered the few photos and video snippets I had taken, ready to show her. That evening, when the kids were out of earshot, I asked her to sit down. I showed her the evidence, laying it all out on the table. At first, she seemed shocked, maybe even embarrassed, but then she tried to downplay it, insisting that it was just a passing fling and nothing serious. But I knew better. This wasn't a one-time mistake. It was a betrayal that had clearly been going on for longer than I'd realized. I couldn't just ignore it and move on. I had to protect my kids and, in a way, protect myself. The trust was broken, and I knew it couldn't be repaired. The next morning, I contacted a lawyer. George came highly recommended, a tough, no-nonsense kind of guy who was exactly what I needed. I filed for divorce and requested a restraining order against both Emily and David, which wasn't easy but felt necessary. George was confident and immediately laid out a plan. He would help me pursue child support from David, leveraging the DNA evidence to prove he was Lily's biological father. We'd also expose the affair publicly, which might help protect my kids by holding Emily and David accountable. News of the affair spread quickly. It wasn't long before friends, family, and even colleagues began to find out what had happened. Emily and David's reputations took a heavy hit. What they'd done wasn't something that could easily be swept under the rug, and the fallout affected both of them deeply. Meanwhile, I was focusing on what mattered most: my kids. They deserved honesty. So I sat them down and explained the truth as gently as I could. They were hurt and confused, understandably, but in a way, I think they were relieved to understand why things had felt so tense at home lately. In the weeks that followed, I began to adjust to this new life. It wasn't easy, but there was a certain peace in knowing that I had done everything I could to protect my kids. Friends and family reached out, reminding me that I wasn't alone, and I felt their support in a way I hadn't before. It was clear that, despite the pain of losing my marriage, I had something more valuable in the loyalty and love of those who truly cared. With time, I began to heal. I still felt the sting of betrayal, and some days were harder than others. But as I spent more time with my kids, focusing on our family and moving forward, I knew I was doing the right thing. It would take time to rebuild, but with my family's support, I was ready to face whatever lay ahead. The scandal had left its mark on everyone involved. Emily and David had become public pariahs, their reputations in ruins. The story had spread far and wide, and their careers were effectively over. What they had tried to hide was now out in the open, and neither of them could escape the consequences. Meanwhile, I found myself navigating life in the aftermath, trying to hold things together for my kids, especially Lily. She was struggling with the realization that David, not me, was her biological father. It was hard for her to understand, and I wanted to do everything I could to be there for her, offering reassurance and stability. I decided that my family needed time to heal, and for that, I needed to take a break from work. My position as regional director could wait. Right now, my focus was on my kids. We took some time to step away from the familiar and reconnect as a family. We went on weekend trips, explored new places, and indulged in simple, fun activities like board games and movie nights at home. For those precious moments, the stress and hurt seemed to fade, and we could just be together, creating memories untouched by the recent turmoil. As the legal proceedings moved forward, more details about Emily and David's relationship came to light. It turned out their affair had been going on for years, far longer than I had initially thought. Every piece of information I learned chipped away at the image I'd once had of Emily as a loyal wife and mother. It was a betrayal on a scale I hadn't anticipated, and I often found myself thinking back to moments over the years, wondering how I hadn't seen it. Still, I knew that dwelling on the past wouldn't change it. My priority now was to keep moving forward for myself and my children. The legal case was complex, but George, my lawyer, was a rock through it all. He worked tirelessly to ensure justice was served. David was ultimately ordered to pay child support for Lily, acknowledging his role and responsibility in a tangible way. Both Emily and David faced additional consequences that impacted them personally and professionally as the legal fallout continued to unravel their lives. While the victory didn't erase the pain, it did bring a sense of closure. I had gone through one of the toughest experiences of my life, but I had emerged stronger. The betrayal had changed me, no doubt, but it had also reinforced some fundamental truths: the importance of trust, the value of honesty, and the power of family. In a strange way, I felt more grateful than ever for the love and support I'd found in friends, family, and, most importantly, my kids. They were my true source of strength, and together, we were rebuilding our lives. Lily and her siblings had been through so much, but I could see their resilience. They'd shown maturity and compassion that amazed me, and I knew they were on their own journey of healing. In time, I hoped that the experiences we'd shared would bring us even closer. I made a promise to myself to be the kind of parent they could depend on, someone who would always be honest with them, even when life got tough. Looking ahead, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. My kids and I deserved a fresh start, and while the memories of Emily's betrayal would always be there, I was learning to let go. I had a life to rebuild and dreams of a future that didn't revolve around hurt or bitterness. Instead, it was about hope, growth, and new beginnings. This ordeal had changed me, but it had also taught me a valuable lesson. Life moves on, and we have a choice in how we face it. I wasn't going to let the actions of others define my story. The kids and I were ready to move forward, and together, we would make a new life for ourselves, one built on the foundations of love, loyalty, and trust. The dust of the scandal had finally settled, and life was slowly returning to normal. After all the chaos, I found comfort in the familiarity of work and the everyday routines with my kids. My focus was on creating a stable, positive environment for them, and I could see that they were beginning to heal, little by little. Their laughter was returning, they were doing well in school, and there was a lightness to our days that had been missing for so long. One afternoon, I met a woman named Sarah at a community event. She had an easy smile, a warm laugh, and a straightforward way about her that I found refreshing. We struck up a conversation, and before long, it felt like I'd known her for years. She had a genuine interest in people and an impressive depth of kindness and intelligence, with a sense of humor that could brighten anyone's day. Soon, we started meeting up regularly. At first, it was just as friends. She was understanding and had a way of listening that made me feel at ease. I found myself opening up to her, sharing pieces of my story in a way I hadn't with anyone else. Sarah understood the weight of what I'd gone through, and instead of making me feel like a broken person, she reminded me that I was more than the past and that I had a lot to look forward to. As the months went by, I realized that I was beginning to feel something I hadn't expected. I was falling for her. I felt a sense of peace and warmth with Sarah that I hadn't known in a long time. She brought a new energy into my life and showed me how to let go of the bitterness that had once consumed me. My kids adored Sarah too. She was patient, thoughtful, and genuinely cared about each of them. She would join us for weekend outings, and soon, she felt like a part of the family. She wasn't trying to replace anyone, but was there to support them as they needed. The connection she shared with my kids meant everything to me. One evening, I decided it was time to take the next step. I had known for a while that I wanted Sarah by my side for the rest of my life. I proposed to her on a quiet night, just the two of us, and when she said yes, I felt a happiness I hadn't thought was possible again. Our wedding was a simple but beautiful gathering, filled with close friends and family. It wasn't a grand event. It was a celebration of love, hope, and fresh beginnings. My kids played a big role in the ceremony, each of them beaming as they welcomed Sarah officially into our family. Seeing their smiles and knowing that they, too, felt the joy of this new chapter meant everything to me. With Sarah by my side, I felt like I had finally found peace. She was a new partner, yes, but also a friend and a source of strength. Her presence was a reminder of how far I'd come. I realized that while the scars from my past would always be there, they no longer held power over me. The betrayal, the legal battles, and the heartache had taught me valuable lessons about resilience, forgiveness, and the power of moving forward. As the days turned into months, I found myself appreciating the little things again. Quiet mornings over coffee, family dinners filled with laughter, and the simple joy of being surrounded by people who genuinely cared about one another. Sarah's influence helped me see that, despite everything, life was still full of beauty and that happiness was not only possible but well within reach. I knew that, with her, my kids and I would continue to heal and grow. This time, though, we were doing it with the solid foundation of love, trust, and honesty that I now valued more than ever. The pain of the past no longer defined me. It had become just one chapter in a much larger story. I had finally found the peace and happiness I'd been searching for. Looking back, I realized just how much I've grown through the tumultuous experiences of the past few years. The journey has been anything but easy, but it has reshaped my perspective on trust, love, and resilience. I've learned the hard way that trust is a fragile thing, something that can be built over time but can also be shattered in an instant. When it's broken, the consequences can be devastating, affecting not just the individuals involved but also the innocent bystanders caught in the fallout. The betrayal I experienced from Emily and David cut deep, forcing me to confront emotions I had long buried. The sense of security I once felt in my marriage was ripped away, leaving me feeling vulnerable and exposed. I often found myself questioning everything: my choices, my judgment, and even the love I had given so freely. It was a painful lesson, but I came to understand that while trust can be broken, it can also be rebuilt, though the process takes time and effort. Throughout this ordeal, I also learned the profound importance of forgiveness. Initially, I struggled to let go of the anger and resentment I felt toward Emily and David. I held on to those feelings like a security blanket, thinking they would protect me from being hurt again. But in reality, clinging to that anger only weighed me down. It became clear to me that holding on to resentment only hurts yourself, often more than the one you're angry at. When I finally chose to forgive them, not just for their sake, but for my own, I felt a significant weight lift from my shoulders. Forgiveness allowed me to let go of the past and move on with my life. It didn't mean I excused their actions, nor did it erase the pain I experienced. Instead, it granted me the freedom to reclaim my life and focus on what truly mattered: my children, my career, and my own well-being. I am incredibly grateful for the support of my family and friends throughout this journey. They were my rock during the darkest times, providing love and encouragement when I felt lost and uncertain. My friends, Chris and Sarah, stepped up in ways I never expected, helping me investigate and navigate the complexities of my situation. Their unwavering support reminded me that I wasn't alone, and I didn't have to face my struggles in isolation. As I reflect on my experiences, I hope that my story can serve as a cautionary tale for others. Life is unpredictable, and it's crucial to be mindful of who you trust. The signs of betrayal can sometimes be subtle, and it's essential to remain aware of the dynamics around you. Pay attention to the little changes. Those late-night outings, sudden secrets, or emotional distances can be indicators of deeper issues lurking beneath the surface. Life is a series of surprises, both good and bad. The key is not to let the challenges define you, but to face them with courage and resilience. I've come to appreciate that every obstacle can lead to personal growth if you allow it. With time and effort, it's possible to overcome even the most difficult situations and emerge stronger on the other side. Today, I look forward to the future with a sense of hope and possibility. The road hasn't been easy, but it has led me to a place of understanding and strength. I know that I can face whatever life throws my way, armed with the lessons I've learned and the love of my family by my side. Life may continue to throw curveballs, but I am ready to embrace them, confident in my ability to navigate the ups and downs, knowing that I can rise above the challenges with resilience and grace.